Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scratch Challenge number 3. In this Scratch Challenge, I was thinking that we could perhaps take a tour of some of Canada by using the ask and answer blocks and also by using some variables. So what I've done is I'm starting with a fresh project here, and I'm just going to get started by loading in some images. So I've gone ahead and done some research of some different images of Canada. So I've got the downtown of Toronto, beach in Prince Edward Island, and the Rocky Mountains, and specifically the Kicking Horse Pass. So I've got these 3 images, and what I've done is I've saved them to my computer, and I'm using a Chromebook for the demonstration, just so that it's similar to what your students are using. If you're using a desktop, this will be very similar. So I've already saved a number of the images, and they're on my computer, and I'll kind of show you where they're going. But I know that I haven't saved the beach in PEI yet. So what I do is I right-click on it by doing a 2-finger click. And I click Save Image As. Your students can then choose whether they want to save the image to their downloads or their Google Drive. I'm going to save it to their downloads, to my downloads, because that's where the other 2 are. Verify the file name and click Save. It'll pop up telling you that it's been saved successfully. So back over here in Scratch, instead of being focused on Scratchy the cat or your sprite, I'm going to click over on my stage or my backdrop, and you see the blue square or blue outline is around it. I'm going to click on backdrops. This is going to let me load in different backdrops. So you can either load a pre-made one. You can also click right here to do the same thing. You can paint or draw a new backdrop, or you can upload one or use your camera to take a picture of you. And I'm going to actually, didn't want to click on that. But I'm going to click on the folder. So that way I'm going to be able to upload from files that I have downloaded. All right, so what I'm going to do is once I've gone there, I'm going to look, and your files are either going to be in the downloads folder, which is where I'm saving to, or perhaps the student has it set up so that they save files directly to Google Drive. In that case, they're going to end up right here. But on this computer, I have it set up, or on this Chromebook, I have it set up so that it saves to the downloads. I select my files. We'll select the Kicking Horse Pass image. I get an uploading image, and there's my new backdrop. I'm going to upload another one, and we'll upload the picture of downtown Toronto next. Just have to wait a second while the computer thinks. There's the next picture. Again, you should get an uploading image prompt, and then again, the image should appear. And finally, an image of Prince Edward Island. Beautiful. So what's going to happen is I'm going to delete this backdrop right here. And you do that by clicking on the backdrop. So once you click on it, you notice there's a little X that appears. I click on that X, and that's one way to delete a backdrop. I'm going to name all my backdrops to something nice and easy. So I know this is PEI, so I'm just going to call it PEI. I know it's the Kicking Horse Pass, but instead of making that really long name, I'm just going to call it BC, because I know it's British Columbia, or from British Columbia. And this one I'm going to call Ontario, but I'm going to use the 2-letter acronym or shortening for it of ON. So I've got my picture of BC, Ontario, and PEI. So I've got everything set up now here. And now in my sprite, I'm going to do some of my coding. So back on Scratchy the cat, what's going to happen is if you find yourself not looking at the coding, but the costumes area, make sure to click the tabs at the top and get back to your scripts. Once it's loaded, I'll have to take another second and wait. There we go. What I'm going to do is let's make this, we'll go to events, and we'll get this started with when flag clicked. So when the flag is clicked, let's go to looks, and we'll say something, and make sure it says say hello for 2 seconds, not just to say hello, but say hello for 2 seconds. And we'll say, welcome to our tour, T-O-U-R, of Canada. We'll bring in another say. We'll go with I am in Toronto. I'm in Toronto, Ontario right now. Exclamation mark, because that's where Scratchy the Cat is. What's another fact we know about Toronto, Ontario right now? Toronto is the provincial capital of Ontario. Perfect. So we've got those different messages that'll each appear for 2 seconds. And they might be a bit quick. You can just check that out real quick. Welcome to our tour of Canada. I'm in Toronto, Ontario right now. Toronto is the provincial capital of Ontario. Beautiful. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into sensing, and we're going to use an ask block. And ask blocks are pretty awesome. It lets you ask a question to the user and lets the user respond back. So we'll ask, would you like to go to British Columbia or PEI next? So let's see what that does. Let's click off that block. There we go. Welcome to our tour of Canada. I'm in Toronto, Ontario right now. Toronto is the provincial capital of Ontario. Would you like to go to British Columbia or PEI next? So you see that everything stops and waits. So the block asks and waits for an answer. So nothing will happen until the user writes in something down here. So would you like to go to British Columbia or PEI next? So let's type in PEI, and that's our answer. So nothing happens because we didn't really use an answer. Down here, this is our answer block. And if I double click on it, it stores the answer that I just said. And you can double click on a block and learn about what's inside of it or learn about its properties. So for example, this one, the answer we just got is PEI. So instead of just having to hopefully store this answer in this answer block, what I'd like you to do is let's go to the data blocks. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a variable. We're going to call this user choice 1. We'll click OK. So user choice 1 has nothing in it, it's 0. And if you want to show it up here, you let it be clicked. If you click that check box off, it disappears. But for right now, I'm going to keep it here. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to use a set user choice 2. I'm going to drop this answer block inside. If I double click on it, now it shows up. But instead of having to double click on it, let's use it by connecting it. So now we'll run our code again. Welcome to our tour of Canada. I'm in Toronto, Ontario right now. Toronto is the provincial capital of Ontario. Would you like to go to British Columbia or PEI next? So this time I'll write British Columbia. And then you see it ends up there. Now, typing that perfectly exactly might be very difficult. So let's change this up. And we'll just change it to BC just to make it a little bit easier for our users to type it correctly. So BC or PEI next and wait. So ask, would you like to go to BC or PEI next and wait. So perfect. So now what we're going to do is now we're going to code our backdrop. So you may not have done this before, but we're going to code this. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to use the control block. And what the control block is going to let us do is it's going to let us do something called an if statement. And with the if statement, we are going to be able to see, so if, and what we're going to do is, you see the hexagon shape piece there, we're going to use an equal sign here. I'm going to say, so if the user choice is equal to, and there's 2 possibilities this could be. Let's duplicate this. So there's 2 answers we could get for user choice. There is the user choice of BC, and there's the user choice of PEI. So those are 2 possibilities that the user can give us. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in another if then. Oops, kind of missed a click there. So we're going to drag user choice 1 into there and this one into here. So if the user choice equals BC, then do something. If the user choice equals PEI, then do something. I hope this makes sense so far. So what we'll do is we're going to go to looks, and there is the switch backdrop piece. So what we can do is you can click here and you can see all the different backdrops we have. And this is why we made our names a little bit shorter, because it's a little bit easier to know which backdrop we're referring to. So if they pick the backdrop of PEI, that's what happens. And if they pick the backdrop of BC, well, then they can go to BC. So once you've done that, you can connect those together. And once you've done that, you could take, you got to think of when is this going to happen? So how does it know when this happens? So one thing you could do is you could go to events and you could go when flag clicked. And if you run that right now, for example, Scratchy the Cat, welcome to Tour of Canada. I'm in Toronto, Canada right now. Toronto is the provincial capital of Ontario. Would you like to go to BC or PEI next? Well, because we haven't made a section yet, or our section is actually British Columbia, what we got to do is we should probably, we'll enter in an answer, so we'll go PEI and press enter. But nothing happens. The reason being is the only time this code ran was right when we clicked the flag. What we need to do is we don't need to run this just once. We need to run this, you've got it. We need to run it forever. So now when we click the flag, ooh, it automatically changed. What happened there? Well, it's holding our previous answer in right there. So this is called initialization. And we need to also make sure we initialize this in our data by setting our user choice to nothing. So we'll actually clear that out. We'll make it blank and empty that out. So now we run it. Oh no, but we're stuck in PEI. So we also need to initialize our backdrop. So what we need to do is we need to go to looks, and right off the top, we need to make sure we switch the backdrop to Ontario. So now we run it. We're in Ontario. There's no user choice made yet, and it's not going to switch things around. So be careful when you start doing this stuff, because sometimes it'll start behaving certain ways, and it's because you haven't initialized. So we initialized by setting our backdrop to Ontario, and that's in the stage. And then in Scratchy the Cat, we also initialized by setting the user choice to blank. We actually deleted everything out of there. So there's no information in there off the top. There's no answers held or retained from the past run of the code. So now let's see if this runs. So would I like to go to BC or PEI? I need to type in here, BC, and enter. Hey, it worked. So we were able to get this code down here to work. So if the user picked BC, then we switch the backdrop to BC. Well, let's do something in here. What we're going to do is we're going to do the same exact thing in Scratchy the Cat. So when the flag's clicked, we're going to check forever. And we're going to check to see if, we'll kind of make this block right here. And we'll put that in an if then. We'll go to data. So we'll put user choice 1 in there. So we're going to check both user choices when we're Scratchy to do something in each one of these cases, depending on what happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, if the user choice is, and I'm going to duplicate this. So I right click, duplicate. So you know there's two choices it could be. They could answer BC or they could answer PEI. Beautiful. So connect those together. Put those inside our forever. And now what we'll do is we'll get Scratchy to say something. Say, well, if he's in the mountains, let's say, I love the mountains and rivers here. Awesome. And then for Scratchy the Cat, if he goes to BC, I say, I love the beautiful sandy beaches and clear ocean waters here. All right, so say I love the mountains and rivers here. Say I love the beautiful sandy beaches and clear ocean waters here. So let's see if that runs. So we're going to see if, number one, our background changes, and number two, if we can get Scratchy the Cat to say something. Welcome to our tour of Canada. I'm in Toronto, Ontario right now. Toronto is the provincial capital of Ontario. Would you like to go to BC or PEI next? Let's go to PEI. Enter. And there's Scratchy's comment. Now it's going to keep flicking because forever it's going to keep running through this code and saying, I love the mountains, rivers here. So one thing you could do is at the end of that, if you want to stop, you could go to stop all. Just drop it in there. And you can bring in a stop all right here and drop it in there. And what that will do is once you run that, see how it's stopped right there. So that's a way that you can kind of get that to happen. So that's a way that you can use variables to store information and to help change things about the background. We're actually going to do something very, very similar to this for Scratch Challenge number 5, except we're going to use broadcast to make this a lot simpler and a lot cleaner. Scratch Challenge number 4 will be some debugging with variables, and you'll get a chance to see how we use variables, and I'll give you something kind of to debug that I've made some mistakes with, and I hope that you enjoy the kind of instruction I gave you. And for your Scratch Challenge, get Scratchy to go somewhere and bring him on a tour. Include information about where Scratchy is going. Take him to different places on Earth. Research and learn about a different neat place and help the users learn about those different places with where you code them. You don't have to just do 2 places either. You could do lots of more different places depending on how many backdrops you include. I'll be including a studio for you to share your work, and please make sure that you be really creative in this and share your work to our studio. Thank you very much and take care.